Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the hidden psychology behind exactly how and why we connect with others, and, why we sometimes completely pull away. Whether you're trying to navigate complex relationships, figure out your own social battery, or maybe just build a stronger emotional shield, This Explainer is going to connect a lot of dots for you. Let's get right into it.
I want you to think about a time when you were at a party, maybe a networking event, or honestly even just sitting at a dinner table surrounded by people you actually like. Everyone's talking, the music's playing, and yet, right in the middle of all that noise, you feel this strange, hollow distance, kind of like you're watching the whole thing through glass. Have you ever felt completely isolated despite being hyper-connected in our 21st century world? It's a massive modern epidemic, but as we'll see today, that feeling isn't necessarily a flaw in your wiring. It's actually a really profound psychological signal.
Okay, let's dive into this. We'll be taking a quick journey through our social minds, looking at the modern connection paradox, the roots of our bonds, the agreeableness trait, why intelligent minds often crave solitude, and finally, how Stoicism can help us build emotional resilience.
So starting with Section 1, the roots of our bonds, and how early care shapes our social battery.
To really understand our social battery, we actually have to go all the way back to the very beginning. Psychologists John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth totally revolutionized how we understand human connection. They proved that infant attachment happens in distinct phases. From birth to about 6 weeks, it's a pre-attachment phase. Then, from 6 weeks to 8 months, we start to see a preference for specific caregivers forming. Between 8 and 18 months, that's where clear-cut attachment happens. This is often where separation anxiety kicks in. And from 18 months onward, we start forming true reciprocal relationships. Now, why on earth does this matter to you as an adult? Well, because these phases build what psychologists call our internal working models. If a kid learns early on that people are reliable, they grow up believing relationships are a safe space. But if caregivers are inconsistent, the child adapts by either avoiding closeness or becoming super anxious. Basically, these early blueprints dictate exactly how we trust, depend on, and relate to people today.
Now, what's genuinely fascinating is how perfectly these internal models map onto our adult behavior. Securely attached folks, they generally manage stress well and trust others. But if you have an anxious or preoccupied style, you might find yourself constantly fearing abandonment. On the flip side, if you're avoidant or dismissive, you might actually push people away and pride yourself on being, overly independent. And then there's the disorganized style, which really just cycles through both fearing connection and intensely craving safety. Take a mental inventory for a second and see if you can validate your own relationship patterns here. Understanding this is absolutely step one in figuring out your own social friction.
Moving on to Section 2, the agreeableness trait explained. We're looking at empathy, harmony, and the hidden costs.
So once we've got our foundational attachment style, we step out into the world, and our personality traits kind of act as our social lubrication. In the famous Big Five personality model, the trait of agreeableness plays a massive role in how we navigate friction and harmony with others. Let's contrast the two extremes real quick. If you score high in agreeableness, you're likely highly cooperative, very empathetic, and you'll often go way out of your way just to keep the peace. You probably absolutely hate confrontation. But if you score low in agreeableness, you're much more direct, task-focused, and highly competitive. You really don't mind standing your ground in a dispute. So which of these two extremes do you lean toward? Identifying your communication style here is crucial because it completely dictates your conflict resolution approach, both in relationships and at work.
The idea that the highest form of knowledge requires us to suspend our egos beautifully illustrates the positive power of agreeableness. High agreeableness is heavily linked to emotional intelligence. Being able to just pause your own ego to truly understand someone else's perspective, that is exactly what builds deep trust and forms incredibly strong interpersonal bonds. It's the kind of thing that makes you a fantastic team player and a deeply supportive friend.
But here is the crucial point. Agreeableness isn't just universally positive. There is a documented dark side to this. Extreme agreeableness can lead to some severe boundary issues. Prioritizing everyone else's needs to the absolute point of exhaustion, which leaves you highly vulnerable to exploitation by people who might not have the best intentions. And get this, studies actually show this has a literal financial cost. Highly agreeable people can earn significantly less. In fact, agreeable men earn up to 18% less than their less agreeable, more assertive peers. Crazy, right? It's a stark reminder that we really have to balance empathy with healthy assertiveness.
Which brings us to Section 3, why intelligent minds crave solitude and the exhaustion of social translation.
For highly perceptive people, maybe those who are highly agreeable and just hyper-aware of social dynamics, socializing isn't just tricky, it can be physically and emotionally draining. If you've ever been told you're, too much in your own head, look at this fascinating data. The 2016 Savannah Theory of Happiness study by Lee and Kanazawa looked into what actually makes people satisfied with their lives. For the vast majority of folks, the rule was pretty simple. More socializing equaled more happiness. But for highly intelligent, highly perceptive people, the pattern completely flipped. For them, more socializing actually led to less life satisfaction. This is incredible validation, really. A preference for being alone is a documented scientific phenomenon. It's not a personal defect. Your mind just processes the world a lot more intensely.
Think about what an active mind is actually doing in a crowded room. It's scanning, noticing patterns, catching micro-expressions, reading tension that literally nobody said out loud. When your brain is moving 5 steps ahead, everyday small talk forces your mind to just idle in a parking lot. You have to constantly slow down, rephrase, and over-explain just so others don't misread you. The exhaustion is so real. Every single conversation becomes a small, incredibly draining act of translation.
Because of this exhaustion, we really need to completely redefine these two concepts. Loneliness is the ache of wanting connection that you don't have. It's unwanted isolation, and it absolutely drains your emotional energy. But chosen solitude, that is entirely different. Solitude is the fullness of choosing the space you actually need. It's a curated sanctuary for an active mind to finally stop translating and just run at full speed. Choosing depth over quality in your friendships, like opting for 3 friends who just get it rather than 30 superficial connections, is a high standard. It is definitely not a failure.
Let's move to section 4 and see how this builds into Stoicism and emotional resilience, building your mental shield.
We've talked about attachments, social friction, and the exhaustion of perceiving too much. So how do we practically navigate all of this? How do we build a mental shield against all that noise? Well, the ancient philosophy of Stoicism provides an incredibly actionable toolkit for exactly this. Step 1. Identify what is actually in your control. You cannot control the actions or misunderstandings of others, only your response to them. Step 2. Don't hold hot coals. The Stoics taught that holding on to anger or frustration is literally toxic to your own well-being. You've got to drop those negative emotions. And step 3. Watch yourself watching yourself. Basically, this is mindfulness. It means you can notice yourself feeling frustrated by a social interaction without actually becoming consumed by that frustration. You just observe your feelings as signals rather than absolute truths that you have to impulsively react to.
And this brilliantly illustrates a core idea from Marcus Aurelius. When you encounter toxic behavior or just someone who drains your social battery, your first instinct might be resentment. But true power is simply not reacting in kind. Forgiving and letting go isn't actually for the benefit of the person who wronged you. It's entirely for your own emotional protection. It's all about keeping your internal sanctuary peaceful.
Which leaves us with one final, deeply important question to reflect on. We've established that needing space is a totally healthy requirement for a perceptive mind. But you have to be completely honest with yourself here. Is your solitude a sanctuary that you actively choose because it refills your battery? Or is it a hideout? One built because you just got tired of being misunderstood and completely stopped trying to connect altogether. A sanctuary leaves the door wide open for deep, meaningful connections. A hideout just keeps you trapped. I challenge you to audit your alone time this week and make absolutely sure you are actively choosing healthy peace. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.